So we're going to talk about spiritual sight. Spiritual sight, the ability to see our mission. The ability to be able to see our mission and purpose. Remind me later, I want to tell a story about the little boy who was drowning. Okay? Don't let me forget to tell the story. So this search for mission and purpose, it's the thing that gives flavor to our lives. And then in the accomplishing of the mission, in the action of staying on purpose, we find our fulfillment. And the Course in Miracles says that it says, I'm here to be truly helpful. I'm here to do the will of Him who sent me. And so the whole idea here is that when we search for other things other than that, other than to be of service, to have this purpose and to follow, it's not that we can't enjoy other things, but if our focus turns to these other smaller goals, we will find ourselves singularly unfulfilled. And I say those two words for a reason, because when we go for these other things as our first concern, then we are single. And we are by ourselves. And we are just searching for really self-centered kinds of things. And on the other hand, when we find purpose, when we begin to pursue this idea of it in every event, let me be of service, then we start to open up inside. We start to become connected to everyone else. So there are all sorts of ways to do this. There are all sorts of paths to this inner sight, to this spiritual seeing, to vision. We've called it in the past. And this is what I've always said is I want everybody here, I want everybody to be a prophet in their own life. To be able to get quiet and sense the presence of God, and then to also be able to listen for the guidance that takes us on our way through the day. So I always start off when I talk about this is that there's some really simple things. There's so many people. We have people who I've known for many years who have been on a spiritual path for many years, but it's amazing how many times they will say, well, I can't meditate. I just can't sit. It's just like it's impossible. I can't get my mind quiet. I don't know. After years of being on a path. And it's really not a mystery. It's really not a mystery, and it's really not difficult, except for the fact that it takes some discipline. And that's the difficult part, is to actually have the discipline to begin. And so the simplest way I can put this is the first thing you do is you just sit and don't do anything. That's like the first. That's the first thing. Just sit down and don't do anything. Now, I've known people who could not sit and not do anything. Couldn't even sit for 2 minutes. They had to get up and start moving. Couldn't stand it. Couldn't sit. Now, so I'm suggesting, what I'm saying is, just sit for as long as you can. Sit for a minute. Sit for 2 minutes. Sit for however long you can. Don't worry about anything else at first. Just sit. Have a chair where you're going to sit. Probably be a good idea if it was somewhere where it's quiet. This is what Jesus gives in the instruction right before the Lord's Prayer. He says, go into your closet and close the door. So if we go somewhere quiet, somewhere secluded, somewhere where we feel safe. Now after a while, we can establish this sense wherever we're at in the midst of all sorts of things going on. But at first, it's a good idea just to go somewhere and sit quietly. So just sit and don't do anything. And just do that, and it's kind of important. Do that every day. Get in the habit. I'm going to do that every day. Some people, hey, listen, and there are a number of schools of meditation that says you shouldn't lay down when you're meditating because you're just going to go to sleep. However, I know people who meditate laying down and they don't go to sleep. So really, this is going to work in whatever way you want it to work. Now, if you find that if you lay down you go to sleep, then you might want to change the practice, unless you want to go to sleep. So sit, lay down, however, and don't do anything. And the idea is to clear the mind of all the random thoughts that keep coming. So, and this is the thing. This is the thing that everybody finds the most difficult, because thoughts keep coming. So, at first, don't worry about that. Don't even worry about it. Thoughts come. You can sit there and just look at your watch for 2 minutes if you want. Okay, my 2 minutes are up, I'm going. And after a while, start to examine the thoughts. While you're sitting there for 2 minutes not doing anything, put your phone away. Get it out of there. Don't even have it by you. You don't even want to hear it vibrate, because then you'll want to go see what's going on. So just sit. After a while, begin to examine your thoughts. Just see what you're thinking. It's no big deal. Just observe. And start to think about yourself as just that, an observer. That you're kind of like a third party, standing back watching the mental process that's going on in what you think is your own mind. And just observe what's happening. After a little while of doing that, and that, I mean, it could be days, whenever you feel like it, just start to release the thoughts. As the thoughts come, just let them go. And you can visualize this as, there's a good technique, and it's not mine, but it's one I used when I first started, is to visualize yourself sitting on the bank of a stream, and there's trees around, and every once in a while, a leaf will fall from a tree, and you can see it drift slowly down, and it settles on the surface of the stream, and it moves on down. And you can think about your thoughts as these leaves that fall from the tree. And you can visualize when the thought comes, see it, a leaf. It's settling onto the surface of the stream, and then it just moves away. And just keep doing this, gently doing this. And the other thing that's really important is don't worry about the quality of your thoughts. Don't be judging yourself as these thoughts are unworthy or the whatever. It's just a leaf falling off a tree. It settles gently on the surface of the water and moves slowly down the stream. You don't jump in the water and try to grab the leaf. You just let it go. You just let it slowly go. And you may find we have a number of books here that will give you some other ideas about how to do this, but the goal here is to get some space between the thoughts. I'm not going to tell you that all the thoughts are going to go away. They will. Well, I wasn't going to tell you that. Eventually, you keep practicing and you'll find that you have sat there for some time and didn't have a thought. You will have a sense of peace. You have a sense of connection. When this occurs, when you realize that you've been in that spot, you will have a sense that everything's okay. This is the state of mind that you want to get into in this quietness, in this meditation. And then from that place of quietness, you get up and move out into the world. And because it is so quiet, you will be able to hear the still, small voice that is described in the Psalms. The still, soft voice that is actually the voice for God. You will be able to hear what the Course in Miracles calls the Holy Spirit, guiding you to do what needs to be done. So from this place of quiet, and then sometimes you have to go, you got to get in the car, you got to go to work, you got to do something. And take that quiet with you into the car. Now, some of us have other people we have to interact with when we get up. I mean, there's other people around. And you can still hold on to the quiet. But it'd be rude not to talk to them. Just try to speak gently to them. I know sometimes it's tough. There may have been other odds and ends left over from the night before or the week before or whatever. But to try to maintain that quietness. And you'll do the same thing that you did sitting in the chair after a little while. Is that when some anxiety, some anger, some upset occurs because of some interaction with another, or just because a random thought comes to mind, you're just sitting by the bank of a stream. And that thought is just a leaf drifting down from the tree to settle gently on the surface of the water and flow away. And this is just this visualization, and it's a habit that can be established. Now, sometimes these upsets are just too delicious to let go of. And I say delicious in kind of a sarcastic way. It seems like we just have to. We just have to grab it. We have to go with it. But we really don't. And the point is that after we keep practicing this over and over again, we will realize we really don't have to go with the thought. That we really can let that thought just drift down the stream. The reason that we want to do this is because the only way that we will get our guidance. Now listen, we can go through life and have a pretty okay kind of experience without doing this kind of thing. But if we really want to have a fulfilled life, then we have to be able to get quiet, because it's the only way that the guidance is going to come to us that's going to tell us, because the guidance, what it does is it tells us what to do next. It gives us the motivation. Actually, as in the 11th step, it gives us the power, the energy to do what's God's will. And I sent out today, I don't know, so God's will is our shared will. The only way that I can come together with you and with all of us and experience what shared will is, which is God's will, the only way I can do that is from that place of quiet. I can attempt to do what I think is right according to the mores of the society I happen to be operating in at the moment. I can attempt to follow the rules, so to speak, and I can have some sense, that I'm part of civilization. But I'm never going to experience that true fulfillment until I get to that quiet place and move into what I'm supposed to do based on that inner guidance. So, then the other thing that's happened to us is we've decided we wanted to be in bodies. So we have bodies, and we're sharing the world with other bodies, and which we seem to think we're in conflict with. And in each one of these bodies, we have fragments of all of the gifts that God gives. So temporarily, each of us has a gift, or multiple gifts, and we all have multiple gifts, that are in a greater or lesser degree than the other people around us. We have some abilities that they don't. It's just temporary, because now in bodies we're fragmented. So because it's temporary, that means that temporarily our job is to contribute that talent, that ability to the common welfare. That's our job. And what it is when we do that is it's actually teaching us to move away from self-centeredness and self-serving things back to the idea of oneness and unity, which is the foundation of heaven. Not heaven after you die, heaven right now. So we each have these different talents and abilities, and operating in the world, we realize it's all just symbols. It's not, so I believe that we are spirit and that the body is not real. But I'm in a body. I just pinched my body. I knew I wasn't sleeping. I'm in a body right now. And I'm experiencing the world, the material world. And there's two ways I can experience it. I can experience it through the eyes of fear, or I can experience it through the eyes of love. So, because what I want to do is, I want to change my thinking. I want to change my thinking. I want to change my perspective to the point that I realize that all the lies I tell myself about why I should be afraid, and why I'm separate, and why I need to do stuff for myself, I want to teach myself that that's not necessary. And so what I want to do is I want to operate in this world of symbols, in this world of bodies. I want to operate in a manner that is loving, rather than grasping and holding and trying to get. And it's interesting, the world is designed in such a way that we will get all sorts of things if we operate that way. And they will be actually better, sweeter, more enjoyable than if they were our total focus. So we have this overall purpose to be helpful, and we each have different gifts. And so sometimes it's very difficult to figure out how we're supposed to apply our gifts. What are we supposed to do? I mean, many of us have, careers. Many of us are not happy in, we don't even call it a career, we just say it's a bad job. Got a bad job that we'd like to not have. This getting quiet and listening to Spirit will actually lead us to this thing that is the most helpful for us to do for our community, for our family, for all those around us. And again, these are all just symbols of coming together. And the more we can operate inside these symbols of coming together rather than the ones of going apart, the closer we're going to get to this perspective that we need to actually enter into the kingdom of heaven. Not when we die, right now. So, we have an imagination. We have this imaging device in our minds. And our imagination, when we are seeing the world through fear, imagines all just the worst things. The worst outcomes. One little thing happens that reminds us of something that happened in the past, and we are going down that road. This is what's happening now. We meet a person who reminds us of another person that we had a problem with in the past, and they're just like them. I mean, they just only have to open their mouth and say one thing. And all of a sudden, we've got them. They're in that box. They're in that short brunette women. I think you said something about that. I don't know what's going on with that. You had some problem with a short brunette woman one time, and now they're all bad. But, okay, so they're just, what's going on? We're working with the fear symbols. So we're going to get quiet. So in the middle of all this craziness, I don't know about you, but I start off the day with the best of intentions. Because I start this way. I actually start this way. And so I start off with the best of intentions, but somewhere along the line I find myself derailed. And I'm having all these crazy thoughts. And so then, again, I can get quiet. Again, I just get quiet. I just want to get quiet enough and then show a little bit of humility. And when I say humility, whenever I'm talking about humility, I'm talking about humbling the ego. That's what has to happen. I need to humble the ego. Because the real part of us, the spirit of us, is transcendent. The ego needs to be humbled so that I can access that which is transcendent. And so the humbling thing that I do in the quietness is I ask Spirit to show me what to do next, what to say. And actually the Course says, you don't have to worry about what to do or what to say. He who sent me will direct me. And so we think about this voice within us as actually being a direct link to God. And the Course, how the Course explains it is the voice for God, because we have separated ourselves to such a degree that we are not in direct contact. We need this mediation. Now, the voice is actually part of God, but it's a part of God that we can hear if we get quiet enough. Democratic National Committee is calling. There's a war on. I don't know if you knew. I'm not talking about in the Middle East. I'm talking about in Washington. And they're always trying to draw me into it. I can get into it. It's interesting. It goes right along with the talk. I get all these emails. Listen, I'm a Democrat all my life. Okay? Sorry. That's the way it is. But all this war going on, I get emails every day about how this is just disgraceful, this is awful, this is atrocious, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. And it's all about getting my ego wanting to fight, right? And of course, get in my pocket and give them some money so they can fight more. I was just trying to think about this, and I thought, what a state we've come to in this crazy world that we've built, where now you're not just giving money for campaigns, you're giving money in between the campaigns to pay for, like, people whispering in the ears of other people in the halls of I mean, it's weird. It's just weird that the whole thing has gone crazy. But the problem is that it makes me go crazy. When I start reading it, I can get right on board. I can get right on board with all the nonsense. Oh yes, sign me up. Sign me up. I'm against it. So another thing about spiritual sight, and that'll lead me back into this thing. If you look at the most spiritual people, most spiritual figures in history, you will see that they have some things in common. And one of the things that they have in common is that they were never against anything. They did not fight against anything. They worked for things. So the whole idea of getting people worked up, we're going to fight, this is what keeps conflict going on, because we're all fighting for our position. Instead of fighting for our position, let's do everything we can do to make the thing that we want to happen. See, we get confused because it becomes not just that we think the best thing for government is to act in a certain way. That's something to work for. But if it gets in our mind that what we really want to do is just defeat the other person, to just show them up, to make them look bad, that's a totally different thing that can never be helpful to anybody. So we want to turn this focus around and so I say, be for the good. Be for the good. Don't be against anything. And it's so easy to get caught up in this. There's all sorts of things we can look at and say, oh, I'm against that. Even if we don't say it, we want to get in there and be against it. Well, instead of that, we can change our mind and say, what can I do that works for the opposite of this thing that I was just all upset about? So we listen for spirit, and we get those messages, and we actually, in this quiet space, we actually have access to divine vision. And I've had a number of people tell me, well, sometimes I